So, what can we do? Hello and welcome to episode 7 of the Off Ramp Project. I'm Carla McLaren, and what can we do? During this time of intensity and extreme polarization and a sense everywhere that things are kind of hopeless and that people are hopeless and the situation is hopeless and all we can do is rail at the clouds. There's a lot we can do. And for me, a person who has dealt with a tremendous amount of hopeless periods in my life, I've learned how to get through them and what is needed to get through them. And that's been the kind of the focus of the rest of my life. This is not the right quote, but for me, the focus of what I've done in my career and in my personal life is I wanted to become the kind of person who would save me that time that no one else did. Those 15 times that no one else did. Having lived a troubled, painful, traumatic life where a lot of stuff went down, I wanted to make sure that the rest of my life was focused on being a funny, loving, sarcastic, empathic, supportive person who could dive into the darkest parts of humanity. Because I've been there, and come out with ideas. So the way that I read, the way that I research isn't sort of, sitting back with a pipe and going, oh, that's so interesting what Ovid said. And it's more like, do you have the information that we need? Do you know what needs to happen? Can you tell me how people survive this? So that's kind of the intensity behind who I am. And I just showed it to you. So now let's forget that happened. But what I've also noticed is that I've had to work a great deal on my tone. And I know that tone is a word that activates the heck out of people because they don't want to be told their tone is wrong. But tone is everything. A person who says that tone doesn't matter isn't a musician. They aren't a poet. They aren't a writer. Because tone is everything. What I say to you is secondary, tertiary, quaternary. It's way the heck over there. It's how I say it. It's what my body's doing. It's what my intention is. It's what my emotions are behind what I'm saying. And I think you know that when people say something to you that's like, oh, how are you? But they do it with a tone, and that's not what they mean. We understand what I mean by tone. When people are saying, I don't like your tone, a lot of times what they're saying is, I don't like the fact that you're angry, so you need to clean that up. Well, that's a whole different story, right? The reason I'm talking about tone right now in what can we do is that our tone really matters in a time when everybody's on fire, right? Everybody's jacked up to the eyeballs with overwhelm, with running from overwhelm, with trying to do anything but deal with the overwhelm, right? People are dealing with a lot right now. And if your approach to people is to jack them up, throw some shame on them, want them to be different, and want them to realize how ridiculous they are, you're not going to get very far. And so this work, what can we do, is work on ourselves, become informed, know what's going on, know what people are facing, and then we can know how we respond, if we respond at all, right? Is this a place where my response is going to have any purpose or meaning whatsoever? If it's on social media, the answer is usually no, right? It's just your comments in a sea of comments. Maybe people remember it, maybe they don't, but it's a big waste of time. to be having comment wars or thread fights on social media. It's a waste of your life's energy. As I call it, it's throwing yourself away. Why would you throw yourself away on that? But also, I think the way that we've learned how to thread war in comments and on social media is it makes us respond very quickly, usually snarkily, and without any kind of reasonable emotion regulation. So we're kind of training ourselves to be hyper reactive and not friendly and not well informed. So that would be a first thing, is watch, because I grew up in a very hilarious, sarcastic family. And if you're with us, you would just die laughing because we're so hilarious. But sarcasm is anger. It's a sharpness, right? It does seek to smack someone down. If you're willing to have a sarcasm fight with somebody, you can both have a delightful time. But if nobody agreed to have a sarcasm fight with you, you just look like a jerk, right? So when you're thinking of talking to people across these chasms of polarization that have been created for us and created on the top of us and manipulated into us, right? Remember that all of us have been used and abused in service to someone else's movement or someone else's needs or someone else's inability to function around difference or conflict, right? If we're acting as Republicans or as Democrats or as liberals or as conservatives, we aren't acting as whole human beings. We're just acting as a little slice of the human experiment. And I don't want to come with you as a slice. I don't want to come to you. I don't want to come around you. I don't want to engage with you as a slice of my humanity. I would like to see you to the extent that you want to be seen. And I'd like to be seen to the extent that I want to be seen, right? We can't see everything about each other. So in episodes 3, 4, 5, and 6, we looked at Janja Lalich's 4 aspects of cultic control, because it's so crucial to know about this time, that even if we're not in a cult with a capital C, we are dealing with transcendent belief systems about the best way to be, the best political systems, the best political party, the best, right? We are in transcendent belief systems on all sides of these polarizations. We have systems of control. There are systems around us that are keeping us in that tunnel vision of the best things that we are, that other people are not, right? The systems of control, a lot of it is siloing. I have liberal friends who don't know anyone who is a Trump supporter, literally. And so that's going to give them a whole different idea about what a Trump supporter is. They're just going to see it on, the crappy momentary stories of television or social media or even the newspaper. They're just going to see the spiky parts. They're not going to see the whole story. And I have friends, I know Trump supporters who don't know any liberals. And so what they're hearing is as simple-minded, as improper is the word I'm getting, as inefficient, incoherent, as non-workable as what my liberal friends who have no Trump supporter friends are seeing. And so those systems of control, that siloing, is keeping us from each other. Right? The systems of influence, which is another of the aspects of cultic control, where we're telling each other constantly, systems of influence are what people do to keep each other on the straight and narrow, and whatever that straight and narrow is, right? So if I came together with my liberal friends and we wanted to talk about Trump supporters, it would probably start out with a welcome to see them as problems. right? Just problems in and of themselves. And so in that system of influence, I'm being invited to dehumanize people who support Trump. Within the Trump supporter area, especially if they don't know any liberals, there's going to be that same behavior. Let's talk about liberals as if they're not whole human beings. Let's talk about them even as if they're monsters. And that system of influence helps to dehumanize all of us, because you can't dehumanize someone else without dehumanizing yourself. So what is it? I'm rubber and you're glue, it bounces off of me. No, it doesn't bounce off anybody. It sticks to everybody. You're glue, I'm glue, we're all glue. Okay. So when there's dehumanization afoot, when there's polarization afoot, we are all in a cultic system. Even if you can't call it a cult, even if you can't find the cult leader, right? It's an unhealthy way to be in a social structure. It's an unhealthy way to be a social being. So we're there. And then the charismatic authority, which is the fourth aspect. Trump is certainly a charismatic authority, but so was Obama, right? So was Kamala for a while there. So was Biden for some people. So were both of the Bushes, right? Anybody who gets up on stage, my friend Michael Mead, who's a mythologist, says, when you get up on stage, you take the place of the king in the souls of the audience, right? And there's nothing you can do about it. So basically, when anybody stands above us or gets elected above us, a part of us projects the king or the mother or the father or the empress, right? The diva. We project our deepest needs onto that person. We project our weaknesses, our fears, our power, our jealousy, our envy, we project everything that we can't hold. And part of the work of becoming emotionally and socially mature is to bring back those projections, and don't have other people hold that for you. But it's something that a lot of people don't even know is a thing that you should do. But I'm telling you right now, if you're putting a lot of anything onto anybody human, that's a damage to your soul. It's a projection, and it's a damage to them, because in that exchange, you're both less than human. You are a follower and they are the leader, right? You are lesser than, they are greater than. You're not people together. So anything you do that puts another human above you, and you kind of lose your sense of yourself behind it, or maybe you gain a greater sense of yourself as the person who's following that person. Bringing that back is really important, right? So right now we're in a situation where in the United States, but other countries as well, most of us are destabilized emotionally and socially, and in terms of our transcendent belief systems. And remember, transcendent doesn't mean spiritual or religious. It means it's the best. You can have a transcendent belief system about your business, like Enron did. Enron was a business here in California, and they thought they were the best business people in the universe, and nobody could say anything and nobody could challenge them. And they ended up just destroying themselves, getting everybody's money, all of their retirement, all of their pensions. They destroyed part of the California energy grid ecosystem. I mean, it was a complete disaster. Their transcendent belief system was that they were doing the best kind of business that the world had ever seen. That's always going to be a warning to you going forward. If everything's the best, you want to start looking around for the other mechanisms of cultic control. Yeah. We also talked about the attention economy, which in end stage capitalism, which I call it that because it's grown like a cancer. In the attention economy, you are what's for sale. And not just you as like a body, but your emotions, your attention, your time, and your energy are for sale. Social media is making a great deal of money off of your attention and your emotions and your reactions and your responses. Another really important part about this time of what we can do is you watch your social media like a hawk, right? What is that ad? What is this influencer? What is this story trying to grab out of me? How much time does it want me to keep my eyes clapped on it, right? Because time is money in social media. People get paid for how long your eyes are clapped on their stuff. Yeah. What emotional tone, here's where tone is extremely important. What emotional tone is coming at me from social media? Are people screaming at me? Are they in despair? Are they wanting me to go out and raise a torch for whatever? Or are they helping me settle myself and start to look at things in a more adult and functional and mature and empathic way? What is my social media doing to my emotional realm, to my emotional body? What is it doing? And is it worth it? You know, if you like that, if you like other people making money, basically being parasitic on your emotional system, if that feels fun for you, then keep doing it. But if it makes you go, ew, or why didn't I know this? Well, the reason you didn't know this is because it's a part of how it happens. It's a manipulative structure. There's a lot of money in it. And in end stage capitalism, that's all that matters. Doesn't matter if it's ethical. Doesn't matter if AI is an absolutely destructive force that is extremely ridiculous, right? It doesn't matter. All that matters is it makes money. It makes you keep looking. And that's it. End stage capitalism. One of the things I say, and I may have said it before, but if you don't learn how to work with your emotions, especially the intense ones like shame, panic, anxiety, rage, jealousy, envy, depression, the suicidal urge, if you don't learn to work with your emotions, and each one of those emotions has absolute genius within it if you learn how to work with it. If you don't learn how to work with your emotions, someone else is going to work them for you. And in the end stage attention economy, people are working them for you all the time, right? They're working your emotions for you, and often without your awareness and without your permission. So that's something to really keep an eye on. Really keep an eye on it. Okay, what can we do? Detoxify what is trying to come into your body and what is trying to be pulled out of your body, out of your attention, out of your emotions, out of your eyeballs, right? Protect yourself, because without regulations, end stage capitalism has no way to protect you. There's no magical hand of the market. That's just silly. Capitalism flows wherever people let it. And it certainly has. Everything's for sale now. And really nothing should be. I'm sorry. Right. So we looked at, I'm holding up the book Escaping Utopia, which is by Janja Lalich and me. And this slender textbook looks at people who got out of cultic situations. And the reason I'm focusing on cultic situations is not because we can say the Republican Party is a cult, but there are a lot of cultic aspects to it. Liberals are a cult, but there's a lot of cultic aspects happening. In response to the cultic aspects happening, there's a back and forth happening. America is a family. We're a family. And what happens to one happens to the other, sometimes in the opposite, right? So what we're seeing is family dysfunction. Yeah. I also am talking about my book, Missing the Solstice, which was the first stage in the Off-Ramp Project. And it talks about me leaving my thriving career as a psychic empath healer and writer and kind of leader in the New Age. And I realized I couldn't do that anymore. I couldn't do that anymore because ethically and morally, I couldn't support what was happening in the New Age. It was very painful to try to get out. I didn't have an off-ramp. I didn't have an off-ramp to get out of the cult that I grew up in. I was thrown out at 17. I didn't have an off-ramp to get out of my career, and what I want to do if things happen to me that are terrible. I want to make sure that if anybody else has to have that happen to them again, maybe it'll be a little bit easier because I did some freaking research. So I've done some freaking research, right? And as we go forward in the off-ramp project, I want to tell you about people who have gotten out, even if there wasn't an off-ramp. I want to tell you about some of the best writers and thinkers today and what they're doing as they look at what's happened to us. This isn't going to be something you see in newspapers. You won't see it on television. It's a slower story. It's a story that takes a while to understand and a while to tell. There's no hot takes, because hot takes, I think, are what got us here. As people were just with hot takes, they were in very much panicky, look what's happening, getting everybody riled up, but not giving them any understanding of what to do with the emotions that they've activated, right? And just keeping us in a sense of sort of emotional and social overwhelm, which ensures that there's not going to be anybody there to pick up the pieces, right? So what I'd like to do is, in terms of what we can do, we can bring cool takes, not like Hepcat cool, but cool and smooth takes that took longer than 45 minutes to think about. Got to get it on the air right now. No, you don't. No, you don't. You can take some time to make sure that you've gotten things stable, that you've understood the issues, that you understood all of the pieces that have come together to create this moment, and that you have something functional to say that can give people ideas about what can we do? What can we do? Don't throw your hands up. As I said in earlier episodes, the time to make up your mind about people is never. Never. People get out of cults every day. People get out of prison every day. People move through their lives, and one day they're a cult member, the next day, whoops, they got into an abusive marriage, then they got out of that, then whoops, they got here, and then they got out of that, right? We don't sort of look at the whole narrative of a person's life. We just sort of look at the spiky parts and think it's over. We're in a horrendously spiky part of our American story. And it moves from here, right? It goes on from here. Things happen, things change, new ideas come out. It's the end of a lot. It's the end of a dream. I was saying to my husband today, I was like, I'm so glad both of my parents died before all this happened. My mom in 2009, my dad in 2017 in March. They were both so dedicated to the American experiment. My mom was a lifetime liberal. My dad was a almost lifetime conservative. He had sort of a Bernie shrine in 2016. Bernie really spoke to him. But I'm so glad. I don't know if they could have seen what was happening without sort of, becoming so despairing about what they were seeing. They were so proud to be Americans. They weren't weird flag waving people. They weren't like that. But they were just so proud of what we had done, and the melting pot, and the ways that we didn't have, class divisions, although we do. They were so proud of us, even the worst things we had gone through, even like the McCarthy years, even the Vietnam years, even after 2001 when we went to war with the wrong country. And is there really any right country to go to war with? I'm not sure. But, and I really thought about myself. Do I wish I had died before all this happened? And I have to say, No, maybe no, but I feel like if there's anything any of us can do, then we need to do it. And as a person who experienced a tremendous amount of trauma in my life and moved through it and figured stuff out, I feel like I have something to contribute. So no, I don't feel like I wish I had died before all this happened. But I am glad my parents are out of the way because, they had done so much in their lives and they went out on a high note, basically. I'm really glad for them. For the rest of us, I hope that we who are left over to deal with what's going on, I hope that we can be a light for each other. I hope that we can be a restful place for each other as things are just, spiraling. Things are spiraling. And in many cases, in the psyche, in the interior psyche, things will spiral because they couldn't be held. And what is going to come up next may be stronger, right? If you can get the right inputs and the right support about you, things can be stronger. So what can we do? Learn, research, come at this intelligently with cool takes that took longer than 45 minutes to write on your blog or whatever, right? To look at the research, social science research, mostly sociology, to see over time, how did people deal with extreme explosions of their country's, basic tenets, basic expectations, basic intentions. How do people survive in times like these? I am an optimist, which is sometimes I'm a realist, but I'm always holding out for what is the gold in this story? Where is the path? How do we make sense of this? How do we support each other? What can we become for each other? What weaknesses in ourselves can we address? What emotions can we learn to work with, right? Instead of, it's all terrible and we're all going to hell. Maybe, but my hell is going to be a rainbow. There's going to be rainbows in my hell, and there's going to be a beautiful path to it. And I'll have bread, and I'll be throwing bread out to the other parts of the hell. I don't know. Or I'll be a tour guide in hell because I don't got to live there anymore, right? I'm going to be bringing authors and guests and people who have faced incredible difficulties, and they got out. And they took an off-ramp and they rebuilt. And I would love to talk to people from countries like Italy. Do you remember Berlusconi? I think that guy was an absolute rapscallion. He was a mess. And I think that they re-elected him a couple of times, right? How did people in Italy live through that, right? I want to talk not just like here's Americans and here's just liberals and I want to know, how do we pull this thing out of the fire? The first thing, of course, is getting our feet underneath us, getting reasonable or even brilliant information from the social sciences, like Janja Lalich's bounded choice framework. I'd like us to look at how to work with the emotions that are being abused at this time. 3 big ones that are being abused. Panic is like constantly being asked to come out. And panic is an emotion that should come forward only when your physical life is in danger. But I'm seeing panic trotted out for every possible reason. It's a very powerful emotion. It does very specific things. And it should, in a regular sort of everyday life, be laying down on a hammock in the backyard, just waiting, just like drinking a drink and waiting to see, is there actual physical danger? Okay, I'm up, right? But it's out all the time, which is a very bad thing for our whole emotional system. The second one is shame. Shame is out all the time. And people are shaming each other back and forth. And shame is a crucial social emotion, absolutely vital to the maintenance of the psyche and your entire behavioral outcomes, basically. But when shame is pushed at you from the outside, it overbalances the system. The shame needs to come from inside and be something that you've chosen, like I will be an ethical person, and that is what me and my shame are dedicated to. But if a lot of shame comes in at you, sometimes it becomes hard to hear your own voice. And I see that when people are attacking each other across the chasm, right? I'm like, we need some shame on both sides here. That's healthy. Shame that is internal, that is chosen, that is well moderated within the person. Instead, they're just flinging shame at each other like they're monkeys flinging poo. I'm like, don't do that, right? The third emotion is rage. And rage is a powerful emotion when you have lost all of your boundaries and you're powerless, you're unprotected. But rage, as you know, can burn out very easily because it's supposed to be kind of a panic level emotion where it just does what it does and then it recedes. But I see rage out all the time. And so we have three very hot emotions. We have panic, rage, and shame out all the time, which means that the cooler emotions like sadness and grief, the lighter emotions like happiness and contentment, they don't have much of a voice. And so people's focus on shame, rage, and panic, although those three emotions are crucial, they're absolutely brilliant emotions. There's just 3 emotions out of 17, and they shouldn't be doing all of the work for everybody, right? So what we have is very, very unbalanced, kind of extremely hot emotional systems. And depending on what you're watching on social media or, what you're watching when you binge watch, check and see, are those things that you're bringing into your system increasing your panic, your shame, and your rage? If so, you're already, like you gave at the office, you don't need any more, right? See if you can choose inputs that help you feel the totality of your emotions rather than just panic, rage, and shame. External shame, shame that's being put on you, shaming. See if you can open your emotional system back up again, because with those 3 emotions, you're going to be exhausted. You're going to be exhausted most of the time. Those are very special emotions for like special events. Those are special event emotions. You have to wear the right badge, to need those emotions. But instead, nobody has a badge and everybody's, running in the backstage area and nobody knows who's special and who isn't, right? So watch your social media intake very carefully. What emotions are being evoked or jacked into, right? Watch what captures you. Because we're all being captured in the attention economy. We're all being monetized in the attention economy. And what captures us is what the algorithm will send more of, right? So if you find that your algorithms are leaning toward shame, rage, and panic, click an X on it. And I like to say, this is irrelevant, or I don't need this. I don't want this, right? Slowly, it will begin to change. Slowly, look if you can find emotions that you would like. For instance, cat videos, right? People make fun of cat videos, but what emotions are they helping you feel, right? Laughter, happiness, some joy, some silliness. That's a good thing to feel in a time when 3 of your big giant emotions are doing all of the work for 17 emotions, right? feed yourself well, feed your emotional system well, so that when it's time for you to reach across the chasm and maybe become an off-ramp for yourself or anyone else, you will have the emotional range. You'll have the range of emotion that you need to be present in a more whole, more healing, more functional way. What we can do is get our feet underneath us. What we can do is make sure that we are ready to become an off-ramp for ourselves and for other people in a time when the road is full of cars going this way too fast and the people don't know how to get off, right? We can become off-ramps. It's going to take some work. But what is worth it in this world that isn't work, right? This is worth it. This is worth it. We are in a time of absolute chaos and absolute crisis, right? And there's cat videos. And there's research. There's research that of people who looked at this. There's answers. There's a way. There's a path. There's an off-ramp. And we can all learn how to take it. See you next time.